Hello everyone, today I'm going to do a video on how to true your foam tires. Now, in my last video I showed you how to properly glue your foam onto your rims. Now, before we even put this wheel onto the arbor here, we want to just check to make sure that the glue has done its job and that everything's glued properly all the way around on both tires. Next, you want to have the appropriate tools. You want to have a digital caliper or a manual caliper is just as fine. Some sort of sanding device. You can use one of these guys here, or you can use just some general run-of-the-mill sandpaper. And one other thing that's important is selecting the right arbor. Now, in the RC market, there are several different wheel styles. Yokomo has its own wheel design. You have, CRC wheels. You have so many different types of wheel styles, which sometimes requires a specific arbor. Okay, so you want to double check which arbor works with your wheel. But usually there's an arbor that's kind of like a universal one, which is this guy right here. But today, since I'm truing a Yokomo wheel, which this guy will work on the universal arbor, but if I was to use a rear wheel, I would have to use Yokomo's own arbor, which is this guy here. So since I have the Yokomo arbor on here, I'm just going to keep it on there. Next, your tire truer. This guy here is a Yokomo automatic tire truer. It is AC or DC power. I prefer just to use some LiPo battery packs to power this guy. It's easy, it's portable. If there's no power source in the area that you're racing, you can just simply strap some batteries together and you got yourself a battery source, and just works just as good as if you were to have it hooked up to a normal power supply. Okay, so next, so we check the wheel. What we want to do is put the wheel on, slide it on, make sure it's nice and snug. All right. And then you take your nut here, put her on. And what you want to do is you just want to, snug it up. All right. You don't want to crank on it, because if you crank on it, you're probably going to deform the rim slightly, and that will affect the overall cut of the wheel. All right. And next, you want to make sure that you have like a guard here just to prevent any rubber chips flying out. I've actually taken this off so I can access this a lot easier when using my digital calipers. Next, what you want to do is set your cutter. You want to make sure it's clear of the wheel. And I'll show you why I do this in a couple of minutes. But what's important to keep in mind is, regardless of what tire truer you buy, I would never trust the actual markings on this lathe system here. You can use it as a reference, but I wouldn't use it to precisely make your cuts. What I generally do is I do like a first, a relative rough cut, and then I stop the machine, I measure and see what it's at. Now, if you're taking really heavy cuts, like 3-4 millimeters off the tire, you want to keep in mind that there's a lot of friction going on, and what that will do is that will generate heat, and what will happen is the foam tire will expand slightly. So you want to try to take the measurements a couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes after you made those heavy cuts, because that tire will just expand just slightly, and you will get inaccurate readings if you measure it just right after the moment that you've cut it. So usually just make a heavy cut, take the wheel off, do another heavy cut with this guy, and then as you get closer, as the tire cools down, measure that. And if you notice that you're getting closer to your final cut, just do nice light cuts on the tire, and that will give you more of an accurate representation of how close you're getting to your final stages. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing rocking and rolling here. Let's turn it on. Here, battery power. All right, so you have speed, you have low speed and high speed. Generally what I do is I go low speed. If I'm doing big cuts, low speed, big cut, high speed, light cut. And sometimes if I have a lot of time, I'll just do low speed, light cut. But if you're kind of in a pinch, if you're at like a big race, you might have to kind of sacrifice the overall cut. You might sacrifice the cut by going high speed, light cut, but generally it's okay. All right, so let's turn this on. Let's just make sure if everything's functioning right. Okay. All right, everything's good to go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this guy on. So there's two different ways. There is counter. This is counterclockwise, and this is clockwise. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You'll understand in a minute. So when you're doing your cutting, you want to have the arbor spinning in a counterclockwise motion. Counterclockwise motion. Okay, that's what it's doing right now. All right, it's on. It's ready. So generally, what I do is I turn it on, and it's going really slow. And next, I will get the cutter relatively close to the surface of the tire until it touches. You can hear it just slightly touch in a second here. All right, there you go. You can hear it making a nice light. Now there will be some high spots and low spots, and that's perfectly normal. All right. So I'm just going to stop the arbor. I'm going to stop the arbor and the automatic track. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this in maybe 3 millimeters. This will be my heavy cut. All right, so I'm going to start it again, counterclockwise, and let's go back. I put the tissue on here because it really prevents a lot of the rubber debris flying around. It doesn't collect it all, but it does a fairly good job. All right. Stop it there. All right. You don't need to let the cutter go all the way back to its original position. The starting position. You could just stop it where it's left off the tire and then adjust. All right. So let's do one more cut here. And let's go across. All right. Usually after 2 cuts, you want to check the diameter. I've only taken a few millimeters off of it. What you can do is you can just measure the tire and see what it's at. So right now it's at 47 millimeters. So I have a bit of a ways to go. Say if I want to go down to 43, I'll have to take down about 4 millimeters. All right, so let's stop it there. Let's open it up. And let's take the caliper here. All right. So right now I'm at 45 millimeters. All right, 45 millimeters on the diameter. Okay. So let's say if I want to go down to 44 millimeters. Okay, I know this guy is approximately 45 millimeters. All right. By the way, this tire is not hot at all from those 2 cuts. But if it was really heavy, you can definitely feel it in the tires. All right. Like I said, I'm just doing this all for demonstration purposes. Usually I let the cutter go back so I have clearance to get the other tire on, but you know, I only have so much time on this video. So now I'm going to go back clockwise. Now this is a new tire, nice and snugged up nice and neat. You'll probably hear it start to drop in power. It's not too bad. Okay. Not too bad. Alright, so as it's cutting, what I could do while that's cutting, you know, just take a quick measurement. Okay, just lightly, you don't have to push down hard with the calipers. Alright, and you know, check it like a couple of times. We'll say 45. I'm happy with that. Let's stop there. Alright. So now I've cut down to 45 millimeters on both tires. Now, what I want to do is I want to cut it down further to 44 millimeters. All right, so let's just move this maybe half an increment. All right, there we go. Now remember not to really follow the numbers specifically on the gauge that they provide here. You want to use this as your accurate gauge, your accurate measurement. And what you can do is just use this gauge here as like a reference point. You know, I went, there's just small, you know, increments. Obviously they're 1 millimeter increments, but I'm just going like half a millimeter and then I check, half a millimeter and then check and see where I'm at. Okay. Let's continue on here. I'm going to speed it up a bit now, since I'm just doing relatively light cuts. Just put the tissue on here as a bit of a guard. And so once the cutters come across, and I hear it come off the tire, I'm just going to stop it. Alright. Let's stop it there. And let's just quickly check. Alright, so 44. It's 44.72. So I still got a ways to go, but let's see here what we can do here. Let's add a bit more. Let's go back. And so what will happen is once you get this tire at, say, 44 millimeters, all you have to do is put this tire on. All you have to do is put this tire on, set it at a slow mode, and it will cut it at the same size. Okay? Okay, let's see here. All right, 44.31. Let's go a little bit further. Okay. Let's see. This goes here. Let's take a look here. It's not easy measuring it like this way, but if you choose to do so, you can take off. There you go, 44.2. Let's do a little bit more. I'd say the last cut will be the final cut for this because I don't want this video to go too long. So what you do is you put this tire on, this other one, put it on, and do the same cut. Maybe have it set at slow so you can get a nice even cut throughout. Alright, let's take a look here. 4410. I'm happy with that. You know, like I said, this is for demonstration purposes. If you want, if you're at like 4410, you could just take a couple more passes with the cutter. That's no problem. Yeah, and just once you're done with this tire, you've got it at a set diameter, then you take this tire and put it on here, and you do the exact cut. Don't change this at all, just leave it the way it is, and do a nice slow cut across the surface here. And obviously you want to measure and just make sure both are equal. Okay? So there we go. There is the way of cutting it down. At really big races, I've encountered people doing one huge cut, and then afterwards they take one light cut. So it really depends on your time circumstances. You know, if you have a lot of time, you know, go ahead, do as many cuts as you want. But ideally, if you're at like a big race and you're limited in time, or you pinch for time, whatever, you know, do one big cut and then do one light cut. All right, so now we still have excess on the edges here. All right, we want to clean that up. Now there's a variety of ways of doing it. You can take a hobby knife here and just kind of estimate where the edge is. Let's give this a try. All right, so you want to go clockwise. You want to have the wheel spinning away from you, not down, because the knife will come back at you. Or if you're sanding the edges, you could just fling it around. So you want to make sure that it's going in a clockwise motion. Okay, so I'm going to try with this hobby knife, which I generally do with my tires, to trim off the excess. So the excess, you know, with your knife, you know, it's about maybe there. You could use this as a stand. There you go. It's all done. It's cut. Be careful when this spins around. Sometimes it breaks off and it could hit you in the face, but just be careful with that. No, that's okay. That's fine. Let's just go ahead. I could take off more with the knife, but I'm just going to go ahead with the other method, which is using like a sanding pad here. You know, move it up and down. You can move it across the surface. All right, take a look. We're getting pretty close. All right, pretty happy with that. Let's try the other side. Let's clean that side up there. All right, it can get a little hot, people. So be careful. That's one thing to be careful with, is it will get hot. So just move it up and down like so. You're good to go. Take a look. That looks nice and clean. One thing is, you don't go too aggressive with this, because what you'll do is you'll end up melting the rim, and it doesn't look pretty. All right, so next, you want to get a nice radius on that tire. What you can do is you can use one of these tools here. You want to use like something with a relatively fine grain. This guy here I use to sand off the edges. There are other companies that make more of an aggressive profile, which does the job a lot faster and a lot more efficient than this guy here. But since I don't have one, you know, I just use this guy for now. So next, you want to put a nice radius on your tire. Okay, so counterclockwise, clockwise motion. So you want it to go that way. Now, I don't know how I'm going to do it here, but what you want to do is just get a nice, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Hopefully you can see this. Just rotate it nice and along the edge. See how I'm bringing it right to the very perpendicular to the tire here, parallel to the tire, right there. All right, just like that. And so now look at that, you got a nice edge there. Hopefully you can see that. All right, you don't have to go aggressive. I've seen guys who just jam it like that and it makes an angle. Worst thing you can do. You just want to do a nice arcing, nice rotation over the whole edge. It's okay if you touch the main center of the tire. All right. All right. There you go. That doesn't look too bad. Especially it's a demonstration video. Whew, thank God. But you know, there'll be some situations where your tire has like these little tiny like fuzz balls. And what that is usually caused by is a poor cutter. Now, see that you don't have access to a cutter at the moment, and you want to get rid of like the little tiny fuzziness, you know, the fuzziness that's going on in that tire. Well, what you can do is just take some sandpaper, usually just a fairly light grade. This is like 320 grade, nothing too aggressive, just something just to lightly skim off the surface of the tire here, just to get it off any fuzz. They're just like little tiny balls. You'll see it if your cutter starts going or if something's not working right. It's really important to get rid of that because, actually, that's not a good example. It's really important to get rid of that because when you put that car onto the track, what will happen is the car will act erratically. It's like you're driving on marbles. And after maybe 10, 12 laps, it will eventually go away because the surface of the tire is now smooth. But you don't want that. You want to make sure that when you put that car on the track, you know that the car is going to handle consistently and it's going to make full contact with the track surface, whatever it may be, asphalt or carpet. So here's a quick and easy fix if you do have that problem. I don't really have that problem so much right now, but I'll just show you what I do. So in a clockwise motion, you want to hold the sandpaper, nice and evenly, just cover the whole surface and just lightly. You don't have to press down much. Hopefully you can see that. You just move it across. All right. And so as you can see, there's a difference. You can see there's maybe a little difference in coloration there. I'm just simply, really honing, I guess you can say, really polishing the surface up nice and neatly. All right. You only have to do it for a little bit. There you go. That's great. Doesn't it look great? Yes, thank you. I know, thank you. Now, you want to make sure that the edges are nice and clean as well. So you can do the same thing. Sandpaper, you don't have to go aggressive with it. Just rock it back and forth. All right, so that cleans up really nicely. Let's clean up this edge here. Now be careful, because the sandpaper will get hot. You are generating friction. All right, just give it a quick skim over, just to make sure everything's good. And there you go. And that's one tire. Now, before you put, how does that look? Does that look okay? That looks pretty good. Edges aren't too bad. All right. Now, what you want to make sure, after the cutting and such, you want to check to make sure that that tire is really connected to that wheel. All right, so that looks good. Not bad, not bad. We got, looks good there. You can see just a slight, like the balling, I would say. Like just right there. It's kind of hard to see, but anyway, you can take some fine grit sandpaper just to cover the surface, and there you go. So that's how you true a tire. Just remember, use this when you're doing your measurements, and just take your time and just be cautious and use your guard. Use your safety guard, which is this guy here, just to keep things clean and just to protect you or others around that might be watching from anything that might go wrong. And yeah, just always clean and maintain it, and it will work for many years to come. And what else can I say? Just practice. You'll find your own technique. I have my own techniques, but yeah, that's all I can say. Just give it a try. Don't worry, and enjoy. It's a lot of fun. Okay, bye-bye.